welcome to Am Yisrael Thrive. I'm Shayna Natanya.
And I'm Jen Hayes, and this is where thriving is our resilience.
Exactly. And today we have a very special guest on today. We have Malka Shaw from the Kesher Shalom Project. Just in time, I really believe Hashem has a reason for doing everything. And I believe that she has been booked on our show because of the great tragedy we all know that's happened, both at Brown University and in Australia. So today we're going to be talking resilience.
So let's start off with, what is your rose and thorn? So in this segment, we like to talk about what are some things that was a positive, because we really do need to focus on the positive aspects in our life. We can always be so focused on the negative. I know myself, I can totally spiral into depression and negativity. And I really need to shift my mindset into focusing on the positives that we have and to be grateful for what we do have in our community right now. So Sheena, what is something that was a thorn for you this week?
You know, that's a great question. And I live in the Bay Area, as a lot of people know. And one thing that happened this week that was pretty scary is a group of high schoolers at Branham High School in San Jose went out to the football field and made a human swastika. And then not only took photos of that, but they then posted that to social media with a Hitler quote. I mean, I have no words. I did see that there was a Pew poll stating that Gen Z is actually the most anti-Semitic generation since the 1930s.
And it's so surprising to me because as an educator who has been working with Gen Z and Gen Z Alpha now, how many times we have discussed the Holocaust and we have talked about different religions and diversity. And it's so disheartening because the students that I encounter in my classrooms are very welcoming and inviting. And I just don't know where that disconnect is happening. And hopefully we can figure that out so we can fix that. And have
totally. I think that there is a lot of it is, social. I think a lot of it is just some of it social media, some of it that it's kind of trendy right now to hate on Jews, and all of that was brought to us by the anti-Zionist movement. Let's be real.
And again, we need to really be focusing on the anti-Zionist movement because of the tragedies that are occurring that I woke up to this morning. And I'm sure as you woke up this morning too, it hit you like a punch to the gut. And I know that there has been a post going around and saying, a lot of Jewish organizations really need to step up the ante and really talk about anti-Zionism and how this hate movement is rising. And I hope that other legacy organizations also take up that charge, because
I agree with you completely.
I'm a Zionist.
If they don't, who else is going to?
Exactly. And we're Zionists, and you cannot separate Zionism from Judaism. I'm sorry. They come together and you cannot separate them. And I think it's time that we really push that in our platforms.
100%. And what was for you? What was your thorn of the week?
So definitely a thorn this week had to be waking up this morning. I felt like it was a 10-7 again, especially seeing the videos where they compare or side-by-side video of the Nova participants running away from gunfire, and then you see families running in Bondi Beach, and you just see the terror on both videos, and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
There was one gentleman that I saw that had actually stated he was covered in blood first off, and he stated that he actually was in Israel and was at the Nova Festival when 10-7 happened. He survived that, only had gotten to Australia 2 weeks before today, and he was also at Bondi Beach. His family, is safe, and he is safe, Baruch Hashem. But this poor man was at 2 different terrorist sightings.
And I think also to mention, and I saw a post from Hen saying, stop killing Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot believe that in 2025, there has to be a post that explicitly says, stop killing survivors. And I think that is, to me, really hurts the most because they've, as you said, they've survived one horrific life tragedy. And now to encounter it again. I think about
Absolutely.
Nova as well, or I think about 10/7 when other Holocaust survivors were taken into Gaza. And
Absolutely.
I know Hashem has plans, but for me right now, it's just why?
I
You
hear
know,
you. Moving on to something more positive. What is your rose of the week?
oh my goodness. So yes, let's talk about the positives. I have to say, the rose for this week is a shout out to each and every one of you that has been part of my community online, whether you are Jewish or not. I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be this calm and I wouldn't be this sane if it weren't for all of you. To know that when I go online and I know I have a community that people are reaching out or I'm reaching out to them to see how they are doing and to talk with other people who are feeling the same way as you and they completely understand what you're going through is so empowering. And I come from a small community of Jews. Our synagogue had to be closed down because of such low numbers. And I am
Wow.
so grateful that I have all of you in this world and that I can rely and depend on all of you to support and to uplift each and every one of us. So I want to say thank you. And that is sincerely the biggest rose for me this week. How about you,
Wonderful.
Shane?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you've just said. I mean, social media, and connection with other, Jews such as yourself, and it really has given me a community that makes me realize that I do have a lot of people behind me, and so that's great. I also have been trying to work out a lot of my feelings through music as well too, and through trying to find different creative outlets where I can express my inner feelings. And for me this week, I actually came out with a few songs on Spotify, and you can actually find them on a few different streaming platforms as well too. But if you look onto Spotify, you'll find Shane and Tanya. That's me. And I came out with 3 songs this week. One is Unbreakable, which is my personal favorite, and it's really just kind of like a song for about whenever you need some strength. And then we have Am Yisrael Thrive, which is the theme song to this show, if you like it. And then there's another one called Rise Above. So whenever you need any kind of strength, please feel free to go to Shane and Tanya and, feel free to listen to the songs. I will be uploading more music. It's kind of a project for me to only be writing like uplifting music right now for the community.
And I have to say, we have Helen on here saying that she says, congratulations, Shayna, great songs. And I
Thank
have
you,
to say,
Helen.
this is a great shout out also to be supporting our fellow Jews in businesses and music. This is a great way to uplift one another and each other in the community. And please check out her music. It is amazing. And also shout out to Schmitty's music as well. His album had dropped on December 2nd. So please check out his album as well.
Exactly. It's got like over 40,000 streams already, and it just dropped yesterday. He's like killing it. Schmitty, we had Schmitty on a few weeks ago, so I'm so glad to see that, he's doing well.
And it's so nice to see others in our community being successful. It makes me just really happy and just
absolutely. And so, Jen, what's your rose for this week?
My rose for this week would be being here right now. I've been looking forward to being on the show this week. I was not here last week. There was a death in the family, and I've been getting over a sickness. And I've been looking forward to just being on here and talking about what's important to us. And I'm really excited for our guest speaker to come on today, especially giving us some practical tools for how we can deal and combat the anti-Semitism and Jew hatred that we are dealing with on a daily basis and occurrence. And I just want to say, as my grandmother used to say, always look for the color in the world. And I like to think that we are also looking for the color and the light in the world. And that is beautiful.
100%, 100%. And so, yes, like you said, our guest today is Malka Shaw from the Kesher Shalom Project. And so she is a licensed clinical social worker. She'll be talking today a little bit about resilience. And so without any further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Malka Shaw to the stage. Thank you so much for joining us today, Malka.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, especially as tonight is the first night of Hanukkah. So it's really a very exciting time to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so for those of our viewers who don't know who you are, please just give us a little bit of an introduction about who you are and who Kesher Shalom Project is.
Absolutely. So I've been in the field of mental health for over 25 years. I have a private practice. I am licensed in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. I specialize in trauma, relationships, and women's journey issues. And I have large scale trauma experience, which is kind of rare in the United States, not necessarily rare for Israeli therapists, but it is unique to Jewish therapists. I was involved in the aftermath of 9/11 and other large scale traumas. And one of the other things that's unique about me is my very diverse and strong Jewish background, which did not take play in my professional life until 10/7. And then that's when I saw them both having to kind of intersect. Kesher Shalom started at kind of by accident and kind of by necessity. Kesher means connection, Shalom means peace. And what we really do is we provide an essential education on the psychological impact of anti-Semitism, both in terms of working with non-Jewish professionals and professional development on Jewish cultural competency, understanding what it's like to work with Jewish clients, colleagues, in the corporate spaces, in the mental health spaces, in the legal spaces, healthcare spaces. We work with Jewish clients. We train practitioners how to treat clients sensitively to deal with the trauma of anti-Semitism. I created something called the GUARD system, which is a specific trauma treatment on how to treat clients with the anti-Semitism. And we do a lot of education on the indoctrination and radicalization and why anti-Semitism is spreading and how to work with people who have been basically kind of like infected by what I call the poison of anti-Semitism, of anti-Zionism.
Wow, it sounds like you're doing some pretty strong work with clients right now. Are there any kind of like signs or like trends that you're seeing right now with the clients that you're working with?
With clients, yes, and there's trends in the field as well. So what's happening with Jewish clients and Jewish therapists are being shamed for being outright Jewish. Jewish clients are having a hard time finding safe therapeutic places to find therapists that they can feel comfortable being their whole self with. Unfortunately, the field of mental health has become politicized, which it's not supposed to be. And that is something that we were trained that politics belong outside of the therapy room. And unfortunately, in the last several years, we've seen it and in terms of even being identified as a Jewish therapist, we've been at conferences, spaces where it's been politicized, and we've been excluded of certain spaces. And so there's definitely trends in certain areas that are very heartbreaking on so many different levels. What we do is we haven't been focusing more on providing the education. Jewish cultural competency was not even a thing, where other ethnicities, other types of areas were really brought forth. I think one of the things is people didn't really understand what Jewish is. It's not just a religion. It's not just an ethnicity. And I think that's one of the things that's really, it's this basic understanding of what does it even mean to be a Jew is hard for people to even wrap their brains about. And that's why the fact that we don't fit neatly in a box, and the fact that we are multi-ethnic and that we don't fit into one box is very hard to explain. And we have to kind of just even backtrack that and explain who we are, what we are, and that we are many different things, but we are Jewish at the same time. And that's a very complicated thing. And, and what our history really is and how our history gets warped over time and what that means to sit with a Jewish client, what that means to sit in corporate spaces, and how people are really feeling excluded, and how history is really being repeated over and over again, but it's repeated in a slightly different way. So it's very kind of manipulated over and over again. And that's what we're seeing.
I have to say that mirrors similar to what I'm experiencing or seeing also in the education field with Jewish educators and Jewish students as well. You know, classrooms are supposed to be apolitical. You take the politics outside, and now I'm seeing the crossover seeping in. So it's very similar.
But this is what happened in Nazi Germany. Like, this is what happens right before the rise of any kind of fascism. It also happened in Iran. People don't realize before Iran was Sharia law, like, they were living, a very healthy, balanced lifestyle. So this is the patterns of society. And I heard that you say Gen Z is the most anti-Semitic. It's because they don't really understand the patterns of history, and they really weren't educated. Holocaust education and what has been is really failed us. I've written articles on it and how we need to educate. And one of the things that's really been devastating is we need to educate also from a psychological place. And mental health practitioners need to be part of that education process. Because
I will say this. I have, when I was a child growing up, I had a quite robust Holocaust education. Since both of you are more involved in the educational field, I also work in behavioral health. What have the last decade or the last 20 years looked like in terms of Holocaust education?
Because we can't just educate by the Holocaust, because that's not what's that's not what's actually going to help bring about empathy. We need to explain who we are as a Jew, not just in terms of our prosecution and discrimination. We need to explain who we are as a Jew in terms of what the beautifulness of what it means to be a Jew. What is it we've contributed to society? What is the amazing parts about being a Jew? Not otherwise, the message that Gen Z has gotten, well, everybody's hated them, they must have a reason. And that's not the message we want to give over. We want to give over this message of what we've contributed to society. I don't think we really understand how much our society has been. When they talk about Judeo-Christian values, it starts with Judeo values. How much of democratic values and Western values really came from the Jews. We need to explain to them who we are. What's the beauty of being a Jew? What's the history? How rich Judaism is, and how multicultural it is. So I think that's the number one mistake, is really explaining the full verse of what we are. Secondly, the language of cultural competence, even that's how I was trained originally as a social worker, has changed to cultural humility. And that's understanding that we all have a lens, a bias. And that means it's not just about knowing a culture, it's about understanding, leaning in with curiosity. And how do we have these conversations in a way that's respectful? How do we recognize when we have a bias, and how do we repair? And how are we going to be humble and know that we're all going to make mistakes? I'm going to make mistakes. I'm a therapist. Guess what? I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. And how do we have these dialogues? And how do we have these and not get defensive? Defensive is what's going to shut things down. How do we not just shut it down, but we be open and acknowledge that I made a mistake. I stereotyped Jen because she was a blonde. So now I'm just teasing you. But how are we going to repair that mistake? And how am I going to be honest and open? And so we teach these skills. It's not just about facts. It's about teaching skills. And Jen, you're an educator. I think one of the biggest things we're missing is critical thinking skills. And that's what's really missing in this next generation, is this critical thinking. And we're really up on media and fast. And we really need to take a step back. And that's why mental health practitioners need to be part of the educational process. And it needs to be a partnership, and it needs to be where we come in together and we work together and have these dialogues where we work together to really build the skills, build the autonomy, because it's not just about fighting. It's about how are we going to fight, but really build somebody back up. And I've done an immense amount of research in the last 2 years of what happens in cults, what happens in different places of how did fascism, how did it grow? And it's so devastating to me. We're on the heels of such heartbreaking news last night with Brown University, this morning with Australia, and what does this mean for the Jews, but it's not just about the Jews. It's what does this mean for society? Us as a society should not stand still and say that this is okay. And if a society became numb to the fact that this is okay, that a shooting should just happen on a university and it's okay, what does that mean? And
Right.
that's
I know a lot of times one of the things I always share with my clients is we can't really control the outside world around us. We can only control what we do. For those of our brethren that are out there really worried, really struggling with feeling like they just have no control, like they just don't have any way to ground themselves, what are some ways that you would suggest that we can all try to cultivate a little more resilience?
Well, I want you to remember that you have generational resilience. Like we always talk about intergenerational trauma, and that is one of the areas that I talk about. But I always stop people, especially when I'm talking to Jewish audiences, and I say, like, I know that I'm a trauma therapist, but I want to stop you for a minute. The fact that you're sitting here right now and you're Jewish means you come from a long history of intergenerational resilience, and that you come from ancestors that picked the idea of legacy versus destabilization, and that you chose this resiliency. And when we think about what does Jewish resiliency mean, Jewish resilience is not the absence of fear. It's not the absence of pain, because we know that we've had that, but it's this refusal, this discipline, this undeniable refusal to let the suffering define us. It doesn't let us define our identity. It doesn't let us define our values or our capacity to bring that light into each other and to let us stop. It's taking that one step in front of us, even when it's difficult. It's not saying it's too difficult. It's saying, even though I'm tired, even though it's hard, I'm still going to take one step. Even if I have to take a time out, I'm going to put one step in front of us, and I'm going to light the menorah tonight. I'm going to light my Shabbos candles. I'm going to give a little bit of tzedakah or charity. I'm going to do one thing that's going to be positive for me. One moment of everything we do is one moment of resilience. There's so many things that we can do for ourselves. The most important things are the basics. It's really about first of all, we have to take care of our mental health and take care of our emotional health. And that's the number one thing. It's not just about Jewish continuity, but it's about positive, healthy continuity. And how are we going to pass that on we have to first put on our own oxygen mask and take care of ourselves. And it's literally we all know about the oxygen mask, but when we talk about loving our neighbors as ourselves, that means first we have to take care of ourselves. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha means first love ourselves, so then we can take care of others first. So how do we take care of ourselves? And it really is the basics. And we have to start with making sure we sleep right, making sure that we're regulated and that we're grounded. And the last couple of years, our nervous systems have been hyper vigilant. We are sitting here going, okay, what's next? There was this relief when the hostages were returned, but we all knew, like, we're not done. We all knew we were not done. And we didn't, not that I could have known what was going to happen in Australia or Brown University. I couldn't have known that. We all knew that we weren't done. So we have to take these little steps of positivity to move forward knowing that we have the strength with us.
So I really am glad that you brought up how we can take care of ourselves, because I'm wondering that myself. I'm just thinking about, how do I go as an educator or, any Jew tomorrow? How do you face going into work tomorrow? How do you face going into school? How do you deal with the silence? How do you handle when people do ask you questions? I'm wondering, what are some practical things, or what advice do you give? Because I'm wondering, and I'm worried, like, how am I going to handle everything tomorrow? And, life goes on. And a lot of people, unfortunately, when I tell them about how, a lot of Jews, myself included, have been getting death threats and we've been harassed, and a lot of them are shocked. What? Really? And it's because, we are such a small minority, and not a lot of people are going through this right now. What can we do? And I guess another question, I'm so sorry, but like what advice can we give to our friends and colleagues who are non-Jewish as a way to help them help us or help other Jews in their space?
Okay, there's like three different
I know, I'm so sorry.
So it's funny that you say that because I actually think I shared. So we did. It was actually a scheduled post of like 4 ways to support your, Jewish colleagues and clients during the Hanukkah season. So I think when we even do the education, by the way, when I tell people that we're only 0.2% of the worldwide population, and in America people are shocked that Jews are a minority, and I give them the statistics, and people are shocked. One of the things that when I started posting things as far as like the trainings that I was offering, and I was starting to offer trainings and wanted to post it in minority spaces, I was rejected that I couldn't post in minority spaces because Jews are not a minority. And then I would show them the statistics. We actually, when you think about BIPOC and you break down what BIPOC is, BIPOC together make up 30% of the population. And when you break down who is in BIPOC, we are actually the most minority of all the minorities in BIPOC. I have actually in one of my slides, in one of my presentations, I like spell it out because the numbers don't lie. Even if you want to say I'm off by like a 0.1%, like the numbers don't lie.
I'm really shocked that they told you that Jews were not a minority group.
People have told me because we're privileged, we're not considered a minority group. I was like not allowed. I wasn't allowed to post things in certain places. So that's number one. So it's part of the education. Wow. So the first thing is you have to make sure you're in a safe space to speak out. But the second thing is I'm going to encourage you to speak out. Okay. Use the voice, use the place that you have. So for me, I started running continuing education and classes in my field. I started doing it in other fields too. And like I spoke for the New Jersey Bar Association because that's continuing education. Many fields are required to do continuing ed, and many require cultural competence or DEI credits. So the more people who could do it, the more that you can. I have a lot of material that I built out, and it's legitimate material because it has to be approved by all the boards and it has to be backed by research. So it's not just me as an influencer getting up and saying things. So number one, use the tools that you have because we all have the voice that we have, right? Like I'm not going to do any good going to a protest. I'm 5 feet tall. Somebody's going to trample on me and beat me up in 2 seconds. It's not going to do anything. And right now my voice is like almost gone. You can hear it. That's why I had them like, it's not going to do any good. We have to use our strength where we could use our strength. And then second of all is us as Jews have to be educated, right? We have to be really clear and educated. Anti-Zionism is discrimination, is a hate movement, and we have to be very clear and say it very loudly and proudly that you cannot take Zionism away from our Judaism. And there will always be some token Jews that want to do that because this is part of our Jewish history too. Only in a fifth of the Jews left Egypt, as you know, or Mitzrayim. Correct me if I say things in Hebrew and you want me to say it in English. So we do have that history. We do have Jews that traded into the Nazis during the Nazi period. This has happened throughout our history. It's not new to us, and unfortunately, we're seeing it today. But we have to stand proud, and we have to stand as loud and proud as we can. So number one is be clear with our history, and we know where our spaces are to speak it out.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so one of the questions that I have, I know that Hanukkah really is about the rededication of the temple. How can we incorporate more restorative practices into our daily life so that we don't feel quite so burnt out when the world can be so challenging?
Okay, so that was going to get to the next thing. So that's also part of the guard system. So the guard system is this interesting thing that I made up. Each one is based on a clinical orientation. And I feel like it's an interesting thing because it can be taught on a very high level to clinicians. And I can also go in and teach it to like high schoolers. So the G stands for gratitude to the G factor. So really it starts with gratitude. And why does it start with gratitude? Because gratitude actually rewires our nervous system. And it really starts nervous system. And it seems very basic, like why gratitude? But gratitude really allows us to go to a place of saying, oh, okay, I can shift my attention away from from fear to safety. And I can shift myself from being on alert to seeing like, okay, I'm here in this moment. and it allows us to see that there are some good moments within it. I have gotten connected to some of the most amazing people literally from around the world that I would have never been connected to because of Kesher Shalom. That is my gratitude. The reason behind it is unfortunate. Unfortunately, sometimes crises bring out the good pieces. So we do have to start with some practical pieces. So the gratitude is about that. And then the G is the God factor, is like really connecting to our higher power and knowing that it exists. And so I'm allowed to say that because we have the 12 steps, and that does exist in mental health. And we can bring in some of those pieces. And then the U is about understanding. And the U, I could bring in psychodynamic, narrative therapy, but it's really about, I talk about unplugging. Unplugging is really important. We need to take social media breaks. I know that this is on social media right now, but we need to take, social media can be poison, especially for our young people. And the other thing is, everything that I say matches with our Jewish values, whether you're Reformed, Conservative, Orthodox. Unplugging doesn't necessarily have to be Shomer Shabbos, 100%, 25 hours away. Obviously, that is the ultimate, but like from a mental health professional, 45 minutes, 5 times a week, unplug and retune. When we light our candles, I'm not going to let my kids be on any tablets. We're going to have 45 minutes of just being together as a family and doing, just doing an activity. The candles are going to burn. We're actually going to do a make your own pizza night tonight. I'm going to make latkes. I know everyone can just join in. We're going to just be as a family and be together. And, we have to unplug because there's so much negativity out there. If for some people, unplugging is going into nature. I'm in the New York area. It's freezing out right now. It snowed. We had our first snow this morning.
Same here, Boston.
Yeah. So nature is always the best healer. It's not exactly practical right now. So we have to really sort of unplug, but understanding the process. So understanding is so many different levels. Understanding is, how does our nervous system work? Understanding is, how does trauma work? How does our stress system work? Understanding is really understanding education. Understanding is really understanding our history, who we are, and how are we going to give that over to non-Jews and give it over in a positive, excited way. If we're not excited and we don't feel good about who we are as a Jew, how can we expect our allies to feel good about who we are as a Jew? We have to feel good about it. I talk about identity destabilization and the effects of anti-Semitism on our identity. This is what the gaslighting, what the macro gaslighting is doing to us. If your identity is not strong to begin with, it's going to be really impactful. Trauma impacts our identity, but it also is about where our identity starts and how it begins. So it really is about how we are going to educate the generation below us. I am a mother first, trauma therapist second. Jew first, mother, trauma therapist third, right? And then anti-Semitism advocate, whatever you want to call me. That, whatever I am, I'm all of that, but I am a Jewish mother first. And
so
go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
I'm so sorry to interject, because you're talking about being a mother, and this is like a very important question that I would love some guidance on. How do we deal with this with young children? How do we instill a positive identity with our young children at the same time? I grew up with Holocaust trauma, so I knew coming out of my mom's womb all about the horrors. And I don't want to impart that on my own child, who's going to just constantly have all of this trauma at a young age. What are your thoughts on how to instill a positive Jewish identity that's not just on fear and persecution?
Doing the fun things. I mean, Hanukkah is like a fun holiday, although Hanukkah is like the least of our serious holidays. Is actually the one that got the most assimilated because it fell. But really bringing the joy back to it and bringing the beautiful meaning. Take each holiday, even the minor ones that we don't normally celebrate. Like there's like Tu B'Shvat, like really finding out what it is and finding something fun with it. When you talk about Holocaust trauma, my husband comes from that. His grandparents, his father was born in a DP camp. Two of his grandparents lost both their family in the Holocaust, and then they had to rebuild in the Holocaust. So we really do come from that, and that generation wanted to shut down a lot of the talks. we really need to bring back that joy. And the statistics are really scary because if you don't educate your kids, if you don't, kids that are not having the day school education or going to camps or Jewish youth groups are at a lesser advantage. We really want to bring that back and bring that joy back. And I wanted to just share something. When 10/7 happened, one of my kids was 10 years old at that time. That kid's going to be bar mitzvah soon in March. And I asked him, I said, is there any part of you that wishes like we were less religious? You know, I didn't grow up as religious as I am now. And I asked him, I was like, was there any part of you that like wishes we were less, or wishes that you, because my boys openly wear yarmulkes and tzitzits now. And I said, was there any part of you that wishes we weren't or doesn't want to? And he said, no. And he's like, it's like when I'm like, when you hear that they hate us, what does this make you? What makes you? What happens? And he goes, it makes me want to be more Jewisher. And then when I
you did a good job, Malka. That's the right answer.
He's like, well, he'll say things like when he'll see me on a panel, it's like he'll be like, why wasn't that guy wearing a yarmulke? And I was like, tell him to wear a yarmulke. I'm like, well, that guy's famous, so I'm not going to tell him to wear a yarmulke. But that I'll be like canceled. But he's like, they're wearing the hostage pin. Why isn't he wearing a yarmulke? But he wants, we want them to feel good about being Jewish and not just feel the negative. So because they are going to hear some negative things. And so we need to have internal. And so it was really interesting. At 10 years old, he said, listen, I think they're just jealous. He's like, you told me that bullies bully because they're sad inside, and bullies bully because they're sad inside and that they're hurting. So he goes, I think the non-Jews are hurting because they don't have as many holidays, or they don't have a good sense of identity. And I was like,
I would agree with that.
We are
a smart kid.
We have kept our identity despite the odds. We have kept our identity for 4,000 years. Yeah. Look, when you think about the story of Hanukkah, it was really a decree for the Jews to not keep their identity, but there was not just a pressure from the Greeks. There was the Maccabees were also fighting other Jews who wanted to give in. Yep. And I didn't even really understand it until I read Dara Horn's book. Everybody knows that I love Dara Horn. She's amazing. I hope to meet her someday. We're like from the same area, New Jersey. I think she's probably my age, and we grew up in the same, like 2 towns over. But I really didn't understand how much they would like fake their circumcision, like they would like sew it back on. They were fighting the assimilation. They were fighting this idea of within ourselves, and they were fighting the outside. And we see this again today. We're seeing this with people that are, saying, well, I could be Jewish. And, we've all seen these posts, let's have an anti-Zionist Hanukkah party. And I'm like, do you know what Hanukkah
I know is? All these, that's how I know none of these actual organizations are actually Jewish, by the way. You know what I mean? But moving on, so one of the questions I actually wanted to ask both of you, since we're kind of, they are. One of the questions I wanted to ask both of you guys, since we're kind of coming down on time, is what is one Hanukkah miracle that both of you are hoping for this Hanukkah?
I would love to have Ron come home and to have our family just be home. And just, I know it's in a broad, grander scheme of things, but Christmas, oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm in an interfaith marriage, so I got Christmas stuff around here too. So a Hanukkah miracle would be that everyone is home and we can take these off. For me, that would be what I'm hoping.
What about you, Malka?
I do agree with that. Our live hostages are back, but I think that the Hanukkah miracle is that we could turn it around. There's been moments where it did feel very repetitive of the 1930s. I think that we as Jews, first step has to be more united than ever. And there's a lot of division within us. And I think my Hanukkah miracle would be that we become more united, that we have and then obviously I have a personal bias that we do put mental health forward, because we talked about the Holocaust. We do know what happened with the Holocaust generation. We have more resources and understanding now. And I think we need to put more resources into not just Jewish continuity, but to building a healthier generation and a more well-balanced generation, and to put more resources into Jewish mental health and Jewish education about Jewish mental health and resources for that. So us to be united and to really do the education and the work that we need to do to build to build allies. It really starts with education, because when you talk to people and they really want to believe that 0.2% of the population is responsible for all the world's problems, it's such a matter of macro gaslighting that has come down into the world. And how are we going to fight that? And how are we going to re-educate the world to help them understand that, yes, the world is very troubled and there's problems, but it's not 0.2% of the population. It's just almost like an easy way out to blame 0.2% of the population.
Oh, absolutely. I find that at least for me, it seems like the people that tend to do that, it's easier to blame some kind of, cabal of Jews rather than taking personal accountability. What are your thoughts?
Well, most of them have never met a Jew. I mean, like, especially in certain areas of the world, it's like, I live in the New York area, so it's like, obviously it's very hard for me to imagine like people haven't met a Jew, but many of them haven't met a Jew. And that's really what's heartbreaking, is it's so easy to put on there. I think that what we need to do is we really need to put forth more positive education, and we need to be really strong about it. And the other reality is, I'm going to say this, and it's a very strong opinionated, but it really does also come from our values. We need to start, the Rambam says charity begins at home. And we have always, and I was raised with Tikkun Olam, like fixing the world. And when we look at Jewish philanthropy, we have helped, especially Jewish, like New York philanthropy, we have helped so many causes, but we focus on ourselves right now. We have to start focusing on ourselves and start putting back our money into Jewish causes and Jewish help and fighting anti-Semitism, Jewish mental well-being. We need to start charity begins at home, and we really need to start with that, and start with Jewish unity, start with working on that. Is there anybody that, I know that you said there's some things in the chat box, so is there any questions? I want to make sure I can.
So right now we have Helen is also agreeing that with what you've been saying about being united. I think there's a lot of division in the Jewish community right now, especially diaspora versus Israeli Jews, Reform versus Orthodox, conservative. So again, bringing that joy and bringing others together. Someone said one of their joyful activities that they're going to be doing afterwards is doing game night after this, after doing the lighting. And I think that's like a really fun and kind of mirrors what you're saying, no screens, and you're just with your family. And I think that builds that connection and that positive Jewish identity.
We need to lean into community right now. I think trauma and mental health is all about not being isolated. So we need to lean into community. Nobody should be alone during Hanukkah. This is a time to be with other people. And, this is definitely a time it doesn't really matter what you're doing specifically. It really just matters. Although latkes and donuts are a lot of fun and really yummy, but it doesn't really matter specifically what you're doing. It's about being together and not watching a movie and not being on your phones, but really being in the moment and being present, because trauma is about leaning into each other and being part of a community. Being part of a community is having that sense of resilience. And that's really what's really important. And I want to thank you so much for the opportunity of coming here. And I have an Instagram account. People can reach out to me. I'm here, Jen and Shayna. I'm really glad that we stay connected. Please stay connected with me as much as possible.
And if there's any more info you can give to our audience about ways to be a part of the Kesher Shalom projects, or any ways to learn more, just please let us know.
Sure. So you can definitely connect with us on our Instagram, our LinkedIn, and you can join our newsletter through our website. We do have a website, keshershalom.com. And we are, it's all of us have a private practice, and we're sort of doing this on the side. So we're kind of looking to partner with other organizations, and we're learning as we grow. So if you're an organization that wants to bring us in, if you have any other ideas for us, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to partner out with you. But we really just want to put some messages out there for people to just, remember that Jewish resilience is about this idea that it's these small, consistent steps. And sometimes you don't think that you have enough. When you think that you're about to give up, I want to remember you are the oil. They thought we only had enough oil for one light. You are the oil. When you have enough for 8 nights, sometimes you think you don't, but we are actually stronger than we think. And
that's something I've always said for a very long time, that every one of us has a well of strength within us that can be tapped whenever you need it. I want to thank you so much, Malka, for coming on today. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful Hanukkah tonight with your family.
So I want to wish everybody Hanukkah Sameach, and it should be a lot of bracha and hatzlacha, and I just wish for peace. I mean, I think that's what we all really want, is just peace, and not to wake up to this kind of tragic news anymore. That's normalcy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Malka, take good care and have a great rest of your day. Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, that was an amazing interview.
Has so much knowledge, and I am going to be looking at the project. I'm very curious about all of the articles that she was referencing.
I'm actually going to be looking to see if I can get Kesher Shalom to come into my work to do some cultural competency training. It's definitely needed.
That's a great idea, even for a school PD too, for educators. Now that you mentioned that.
Yep.
And that's such a, I'm so fascinated about so I've learned about cultural competency because in education we talk about that, and there's a continuum, and to learn about cultural humility, that's new to me. So I'm definitely going to be researching that, because I have not heard of that before. So I'm wondering if that's going to come up in any of our future PDs when we talk about cultural competency. So
absolutely,
that was very interesting.
Yeah. So my work, it almost seems like it's like people trying to outdo each other with their knowledge of how woke and hip they are and stuff like that, instead of having the cultural humility part to say, hey, you know what? I am humble enough to say I don't actually know what this is. And I am also humble enough to recognize where my internal biases lie, you know, and willing to work on those as well. I find that we just don't really do that so much anymore.
And I think also too, mentioning that we do make mistakes. And I think a lot of us get worried, especially with a lot of these new terms coming out. You know, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to say something that is going to be misconstrued and you're going to be labeled X, Y, and Z. And I really like the emphasis on we are human. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. And you just rectify it and you fix it. You reconcile and you move on.
Exactly. Giving people grace, you know?
Yes. Yes. So I think a way for us to have these ongoing dialogues is to give each other grace and to know to remember that the other person is coming from a place of good intention. It might not come off the way that they had thought it would have, but again, the grace to have these difficult conversations.
Totally. Now, I heard something. A little birdie told me that you have something new this week.
I feel like we need a little leitmotif. This has been a very hard day for a lot of us. So I'm going to put on my
Happy Hanukkah
glasses. Will I bring them to work tomorrow? Yes, I will.
See, this is the way to bring the light, you know?
Oh, and exactly. We have to have joy. We have to celebrate. And you know what? I'm not going to go into work tomorrow. Yes, I'm going to be sad, but I'm rocking this. So this is going.
And Kazuza just said something really nice too. Kazuza just said, this Hanukkah, may our candles remind us how deeply connected we are to Israel, to each other. Light shared gently has a way of carrying us through. Can't agree enough. Absolutely, Kazuza.
And there is also a really beautiful quote from, I have it up here. Hold on, let me grab it. Hold on, sorry. And it talks about the No, I just lost it. Talking about the best way to dispel the darkness is to light a candle and with lightness, not just being angry at the dark. So I know a lot of us, we can just go so caught up in being angry at things that are just so negative in the world today. But the way to fight it is to just light and
Absolutely
share that illumination. So without further ado, this girl.
Did you get the pickle menorah you were talking about?
This is, how do I, can you see it now? Okay. This is my pickle menorah. And this is like
We have to have the ASMR.
If I don't continue teaching.
A video of her unboxing this. It was amazing. Go to her profile and look for it. It's so funny.
Open it up. Now, when I opened this up, I was like, oh my gosh. I swear to you, this is just a menorah. That's all that it is. Nothing else.
Looks like something else. So, we're going to keep it PG.
My husband's like, what is this?
I'd be like, what, jealous?
I mean,
it's even bumpy too. Oh my goodness.
It's got bumps, lines, crevices. I mean, it's also too with the ASMR. I'm really liking that.
I wish I had nails long enough to do that. My nails are just completely crap.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that because I am going to get some Hanukkah nails done tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I will have to show them off tomorrow. I'm going to do a menorah kind of vibe with the nails.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
I know. I'm really excited. And so Kazuza just said pickle menorah is Kazuza approved. So like everyone should be buying this now. Helen says, are you sure it's just a menorah?
Well, that's Jen's secret, right?
Well, also too, this looks like a zucchini to me. Like this is not like I've never seen
like a nice heavy zucchini that you could really get a lot of, meals out of.
This is very adorable.
You can mug someone with it.
So I thought since it's our first night of Hanukkah that we can all light a candle together.
I would love that. All right.
And I see you have your menorah.
I do.
And I'm going to
100%
here. And I will read the prayer off. And I want to just apologize to everyone listening. I am a 4th grade Hebrew school dropout. And my Hebrew is not wonderful at all.
Mine neither.
Here we go. Blessings for lighting Hanukkah candles. This is for the first night only. Here we go. Hopefully. One time I lit the menorah and then I caught my hair on fire. So I need to be very careful that I do not do that.
Oh my goodness.
Here we go.
All right.
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehesheyanu. Do you know how to do this first one? I know how to do the regular
like Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehachianu, something, I forget the rest of it.
See, great. Okay, now we go to Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu uvitzuta v'tzivanu lahanek ner shel Hanukkah.
There we go. And now we get to light the first candle.
We got to do it all together.
Yes. And this also reminds me of the whole, like the light in me salutes the light in you, namaste kind of vibe as well,
And also we are going to, I know we talked about this earlier, we are celebrating for those that are not able to celebrate. And especially those that were taken.
Yeah, I remember my rabbi had said something about this back in December of 2023 when the hostages were, still in Gaza. And it was really difficult for me at that year to continue celebrating. And he said specifically, it's incumbent upon all of us to celebrate for those that can't. And so even for all those out there that may be watching, I want to hold space for and recognize the fact that plenty of us probably aren't really in the mood for it, but try to just do as much as you're able to. You know, if tonight you have to take kind of a light night, do whatever is going to be good for you, but just make sure to really take care of yourself and whatever way feels best for you.
And just this one small act of just lighting the candle, just doing that. You don't even have to say the prayer, but just lighting that candle is an act of resistance.
100%.
And
Literally spreading more light in the world.
to drive out the darkness, you need more light. And that's
100%. 100%.
And I know time is coming to an end, but I do want to close out before we go that we would love to see all of your menorahs. We all know you can see my modern day pickle menorah. My mother has a menorahsaurus, so it's a dinosaur, and on the little spikes has the candle holders. We would love to see any and all menorahs that you have. Please send them to Am Yisrael Thrive, and we would love to feature them on our show for next week.
Yes, tag us.
Yes, tag us, and I will also be posting a sticker that we can put on our stories as well to share the light.
I'm looking forward to that. Well, thank you all for joining us today at Am Yisrael Thrive. I really genuinely hope that thriving is also your resistance to. Happy Hanukkah, Chag Sameach. Go out there and love your people, guys.
Stay strong. Be proud.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Hey, everyone.
All right, and we are officially off. There we go. How do you think that went?
That went well. I know for me, when she's like talking, I'm like trying to figure out when to like interject with a question, because she was like, but I thought it went really well. I think that was
I thought it went really well went really well as well too. I've been trying to kind of understand that if we have guests that are a little more verbose, trying to find a place where I can just like, okay, I'm going to cut you off right now.
Yes, yes. That's why I was like, I'm trying to like find a way to get in, but she's just so knowledgeable. So obviously I didn't like want to just cut her off. But
totally,
I think it went really well, and we had a consistent audience number. People were commenting. It's only going to get better.
I saw logged in Joshua Haston. Do you know who that is?
No. Should I know?
He's actually one of the hosts. He's a host of a JNS show. And so yes.
I'm not a podcast listener, so I don't know most of these people. So this is wow.
Yeah, and so like he and I have talked behind the scenes as well too. One of my goals is to get on JNS one day. And so the fact that he logged in to see our show, especially like with the new setup, when everything is looking good, looking professional, I think that works for both of us so well.
I think we're in our stride. Now we know.
I think so too.
That it's just like next week now we already have like the segment, and now we have that. So what I'm going to do is I will take a picture of my menorah, take yours, and we can post them up on the account. And Helen just wrote, she's like, don't forget to follow me. And I'm like, I am following you, but that was from Am Yisrael.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, no, I thought we were. And we can do that.
Totally. Yeah.
Gosh. This is what we wanted to do. Like, here we are spreading great information, joy. And we're not just being bogged down by like the complete sadness and shit of the world, but we're actually just okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I feel too. Well, it was lovely podcasting with you today, my dear. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Hanukkah. And I'll send you a photograph of my menorah so you can put it on Yisrael Thrive's Instagram. How's that?
Perfect. All righty, friends. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later, babe.
Yeah. Bye.